let me tell you about this one case I heard from this guy. His name is Chris. There was this guy, Chris, who told us about his experience with extraterrestrials. He said it all started when he was 7 years old. He had a dream one night, and in this dream, he saw some strange beings hovering above him.
Pretty typical.
Yeah, typical. It was 1987. So he saw these weird alien creatures, which he described animal-like, hovering above his head. And this is when he was still dreaming, in his dream. When he woke up and opened his eyes, he saw this creature from his dream right in front of his bed. It was just it was not hovering anymore. It was standing in front of his bed, just staring at him. And he described this being as some kind of octopus with an elongated head, cone-shaped head. And he got scared, of course. He was 7 and started screaming. And as he did, the creature also appeared to be scared and just disappeared. Didn't run away, just, I don't know.
Whitley Strieber talks about that too. Yeah, some of these things literally can come in and out of walls.
Yeah.
Like take you right through a wall.
Yeah.
There was even, I wonder if it was the story that you're referring to, but there is a story out there of a guy, very similar thing happening to him. These things don't know how to act. They're not human. They have no idea how or why we are the way that we are. I'll give you an example. Kid wakes up, he sleeps with his younger brother, who's an infant, maybe only 10 months, and he sees 3 guys. The 2 guys take him by the arms, and the other guy lifts, I'm going to use this box here, takes the baby literally out of the crib, puts it into his arm like a football, and walks off,
Wow.
Yeah. And he's like, you can't touch my brother like that. Jeez. And then all of a sudden they take him. And there's a theory that they can't do these things without a UFO like right above them. It's not common, but I'm not saying that is what it is, but it just kind of leads to that way. But then they walk him right towards the wall, like going outside, and he basically looks at both of them and says, sorry guys, that's the end of the road. I don't know where you're taking me. There's a wall right there. And walks right through the dang thing. Yeah, and then from there goes up into the craft. But that's actually very, very common.
Preston Dennett told me he talked to many UFO witnesses and abduction victims, and he told me that too, that something came through the roof, or they were sucked out of the bed and went through the roof. It dematerialized, so to speak. And they went right through walls and through the roofs. Preston Dennett, we will talk to Preston Dennett now in November, and we can ask him about that. And that was very interesting. So you hear that all the time. But to finish up Chris's story, he told us this octopus or alien octopus had yellow eyes that looked like human eyes, and was so intense when it stared at him. And it had 8 to 10 arms, he said, but he wasn't sure about that. He claimed its skin was purple, and it was approximately 50 centimeters tall. However, the ones he dreamed about were smaller as the one he physically saw, I think. The story goes on. When he was 11, he saw a UFO when he looked outside his window. It was right in front of his window, a UFO. And within the blink of an eye, he found himself inside this craft. He was 11. Inside his craft. He had no idea how it happened. It was as if he was teleported inside or something like that, he said. Yeah. And inside, he saw aliens, which he described as those typical grays, like big heads, almond-shaped eyes, gray skin, long fingers. And then they started communicating with Chris. They told him, and this is typical, you hear it all the time also, they told him, you're destroying your planet, yada, yada. And they told him also that they had once destroyed their planet too, and that their ship is something like Noah's Ark.
It's possible some of these places have like two suns, and it becomes kind of difficult to live.
Yeah, too hot. Yeah.
Too hot, yeah.
Too hot. After this communication, they led him into a room. A room with very bright light, I think he said. And there were a lot of tanks or vivariums, and that contained different plants and animals of all kind. Not animals as we know them. They looked strange, and obviously they were not from planet Earth. That's what he said. And he also saw this octopus-like creature from years back in his room, in such a tank. Chris said that one of those grays he felt was in a very negative mood when it comes to humans. So he was mad at us. He had the feeling he or she or whatever it was is mad at the humans. And the other one was more positive. He was communicating with him all the time and was very friendly and calm. So he said he saw plants that looked like flowers but appeared to have human-like eyes. Strange, very strange. And so it sounds very, like a little bit like science fiction, but this is what he was telling us. He also saw water creatures in tanks and corals that looked similar to the ones that we have on Earth in our oceans. And one thing he said, he's absolutely sure that he has kids that are extraterrestrials. That sounds strange and very weird, but that's what he told us. And he said that they are communicating with him telepathically, and he also knows how they look like. He described them as hybrids, like humans but with bigger heads. And
you guys know the case of Antonio Villas Boas, right?
Doesn't ring a bell right now.
Tell us.
Refresh our memory.
Brazil, 50s, 54, I believe. And truly is like the Brazil Roswell case. But
didn't the documentary just come out about that?
Yeah, but but this is the best abduction case quite possibly of all time. What he did was he was a farmer, and he was out. It was late at night, probably 8 o'clock, dark, and this red light off in the distance would just kind of like come into the picture, come a little close, fade away. Then it would reappear, come a little close, fade away. But then all of a sudden it never faded away. It just came right up to him. And then as soon as the red light, as soon as it got too close, it was no longer red. Now it was starting to be like he could see the craft, and there was just like a whiter light with some green at the bottom. But they took him aboard, put him into a room. He was in the room for a long, long time. And there was a gas that was coming in the room and made him sicker than a dog. He ended up getting a whole bunch of radiation poisoning. But eventually, the door was opened, and there was a beautiful woman there how did you put it, Dustin? Like when you told you're about like a beautiful woman with good solid features.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
anyways,
well-rounded.
Well, yeah, you worded it quite eloquently there. But anyway, that's exactly what happened. And then what follows after that. But then as right before she left, she looked back at him and pointed here, and then to her stomach, and then pointed to the sky, meaning like, this is yours, and that was it. But you should really follow the whole story, because it's quite amazing what that guy went through. And there's plenty of evidence to do it too, with his radiation that no one has a clue of where that came from. But
that's
then
pretty interesting.
But they also, I think it was the Air Force, they said yes, no, there was something in the area that at that time.
And it's interesting that you said about the gas too. It kind of reminded me of another case. I don't know if Daniel, you heard about this case up in the UK in 1979.
I'm going to be right back, by the way.
Sure. With Robert Taylor.
We talked about a case where also gas was involved in California. Do you remember last time where they tried to get this guy off the tree with the gas?
No. Oh yeah, that's right. You did mention that last. Yeah. So this is back in the UK. I don't know exactly where in the UK. And this guy was an older guy. And so he was going on a walk with his dog a little away from his house. I don't know if it was like a park area or whatever. But anyways, he was walking and he noticed there was a flying saucer with like tripod legs landed, just chilling. And he was in shock. He's like, what the hell? And he noticed two balls, big giant balls that was he said it comes up to his waist, that just shot out of it, and spikes came out of the balls, and it rolled towards him. And when it did, it like illuminated some gas that said it smelled like burnt tires, and it knocked him out. And once he woke up from getting knocked out from this gas, the objects were gone, but he realized that he was all scruffed up and he had a little blood on his head, and his pants were ripped
Ah,
on both sides where these balls rolled up with the spikes. And he noticed too on the ground there were spike holes, and where the landing tripod was, like they were still there. And actually, once he stumbled back home to his wife called the police because they thought he got mugged or something. But he was telling the story, and the police, he brought the police back to the area where he was, and they saw the tracks, and they actually have photographs of the tracks. But no, again, it's interesting that this guy got attacked by something, and it left marks on the ground and left marks on him and his clothing. Pretty amazing.
I heard about this case yesterday, and I saw an interview that somebody did with this guy, and no, not with this guy himself, but somebody did an interview, and he showed the pants that he was wearing that night.
Yes, yes,
The
yes.
ripped pants.
Mhm.
That's another thing, is that there's always evidence with the clothes. Betty and Barney Hill, Betty had I think bruises and scuffs, and then Barney's shoes were completely scuffed on the top as though he was dragged. He ended up dying of a whole bunch of ulcers on his junk. Yeah, he died soon, like shortly right after. I mean, he had this incident, maybe little over 10 years passed, and he was dead.
And there's another case too. I don't know if it was in Mexico. Got so close to this UFO that landed, and it started rotating, and like this vent that he saw, he was really close to it, and it blasted off, and he had this burn mark on his stomach, burnt right through his
Checkers.
clothes.
Checkers,
Yeah,
right?
like, yeah.
Yeah,
You seen that?
I've seen
I mean,
that.
he
That's
had a bunch
wild.
of he had radiation poisoning too,
Yeah. Mhm.
and those sores never left. They're always there.
Yeah, they would come back. They would like
come back and forth. Yeah,
yeah.
and it'd be painful. But yeah, totally bizarre, and like that's believable too. That his story was very
Yeah.
compelling.
I was talking to this lady who claimed that she had an alien implant in her arm, and she went to the doctors, and they cut it open, and yeah, found something inside, but they said it's just a metal splinter or something like that. She wanted to take it home. They gave it to her, and she showed me a picture of it, and it looks strange, like I don't
Like
know.
a BB?
Yeah, it's not. It's more like Tic Tac shaped, not like not round,
Yeah.
more or oval or something like that. It looks.
Not sure exactly what implants are for, but they're
Yeah, maybe
they're,
to track people. Like maybe it's a
Nope.
tracking device. No, you don't
It's-
think so?
no, because it doesn't matter. No matter, people find these things in their, typically they're shoved right here.
In the nose, yeah.
Yep, in the nose, and then they'll just have nosebleeds for years, and then one day they'll be blowing their nose, and then a BB will fall out, But they'll remove it, and they'll throw it away, but then the next morning, oh, got another one in there, and I'm bleeding again, because they'll find you. They know where you're at somehow, and if they want to find you, they'll find you. That's the weird part. But that leads to like what corner. You guys know who Robert Bigelow is, right?
Yeah.
Robert Bigelow, like, he believes it's all to do with consciousness. And if that's the case, that would make a lot of sense, because if it's a conscious mind, and if we share some spiritual aspect with these others, then you would just need that to find. You wouldn't need an implant. You know what I mean? The implant is for something else.
And you're right. And when you were telling me to go try this slow motion with my camera outside of my backyard, before I did that, I subconsciously thought to myself, "Hey, I'm doing this. Come here. I'm right here." You know what I'm saying? Like I was trying to draw them.
Be careful. Be careful. I wouldn't do that.
Well, again, I wanted to catch something, and I sure did. So, like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that was. I think Stephen Greer talks about that too. About he does meditation, and then they kind of summon UFOs.
Or crop circles. You heard about
I
this
don't-
group
I don't like Stephen
who
Greer.
does meditate and call for the crop circles, and the next day
Yeah.
it's the crop circle.
I've seen those, like people who go to the crop circles and do meditations.
Yeah, the meditation and they, yeah, do their stuff.
That's the
and
scary
then-
part, because I don't want people to, I mean, it's selfish of me, but I don't want people to think of these things as gods. For one, I don't think that they are. I think that they operate within time and space, and that's something that I believe. If there is a God, God does not, by definition, operate within, he's outside of time and space. And these things are bound by the same things we are. They just happen to have some cool toys.
Yes, and I don't think God needs vehicles to go to point A to point B.
Correct.